Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers.
No judging.
Yeah.
No judging.
And the millennials are really changing that.
Is charm. No.
All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.
Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers. I am joined by my special guest here today, Ken Wong. Ken, how are you today?
I'm great, Justin. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you very much for joining me. I guess, should I say Dr. Ken Wong?
No, just Ken. Just Ken.
Just Ken's fine? Okay, my apologies. So I'll do a quick little intro. So you are a professor, consultant, author, and speaker. You're one of Canadian media's most widely interviewed marketing experts. You're a Canadian Marketing Hall of Legends 2006. You're Financial Post leader in management education. You have several teaching awards, consulted with hundreds of companies in B2B, B2C, service, finance, and government agencies. You designed and managed the first full-time degree program to operate without government subsidy. Interesting. We'll talk a little bit about that. Successful entrepreneur and member of several boards. And you're in Kingston right now, and you're a professor, obviously, of marketing and business strategy at the Smith School of Business at Queen's University. Ken, thank you very much for joining me. Did I miss or leave anything out there?
No, in fact, I was going to say you didn't have to read the whole thing that PR sent out, but I'm happy to hear.
Hey, I'm super excited to have you on the show today. We are with backers. We work with entrepreneurs. We're all about helping companies. I think marketing is an integral part that maybe has been overlooked at times in the over the years in the evolution of the the business model. Marketing is often a either a second, third, or fourth fiddle, or maybe a complete afterthought. So I'm gonna usually do a choose your own adventure. I'm gonna give you the choice to choose your own adventure here as well today. Do you want to jump into sort of where you see marketing today, or go back a step sort of early on in your career and maybe give us the historical of marketing in your eyes?
Let's start at the present.
Okay.
The history is interesting, but I think there's more to learn by looking at the present.
Okay, perfect. So where I guess, so I'll ask the question, where are we today in marketing?
We are on the precipice of either greatness or disaster. And it really comes down to
that's a big divide.
That's a big divide.
Those are two extremes on the ends of the spectrum. Okay, interesting.
So we're on the precipice of greatness because technology is giving us some tools that make it possible for us to speak directly with consumers,
right,
in a way that we've never been able to do before, and at a lower cost, which is significant than we've ever been able to do before. We have more focus on content like this session, and I'll make some comments about entrepreneurs a little bit later if you want.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that's what Backers is all about.
Yes.
So we have the capacity to do some great things. Unfortunately, we're still mired in that period where people don't think about marketing. They really think about advertising or personal selling.
Right.
And I get that. I mean, those are the two most tangible aspects of marketing. And I don't want to be academic and hold us ransom to some rigid definition here. But to my mind, marketing, it doesn't matter who performs the function. It doesn't matter if you have the title CMO or what have you. What matters is you're making a decision that impinges on the welfare of the consumer and therefore on the success or failure of your business. And as long as we think about marketing that way, we can start to think about, well, how do we want to pivot the business? How do we want to frame its value proposition?
Right.
We have to think about what matters most to that customer. Am I feeding my ego as an inventor or as a technician, or am I taking that technical knowledge and translating it into something that has value, tangible, real economic value for that customer. This is not about putting lipstick on a pig. You know, I can hire advertising people to do that. You know, look at me, I'm not a creative guy. You know, you read the accolades and I'm grateful for them. I'm not sure I deserve them all, but I'm grateful for them. But I'm not your typical ad guy. You know, there's no man bun. I'm not dressed all in black. I don't have tattoos or piercings. None of those characteristics. Because I think in the past, we always thought marketers had to be these extroverts, these creative geniuses. The reality is, in this world, given the technology of analytics and some of the things we can do with AI and VR and so on, man, there's all manner of things that we can be doing beyond just putting lipstick on a pig.
Right. Interesting. I think your mic kind of dropped there for a bit. We lost the volume for a little bit, but I think we get definitely the point is well taken. So, you know, as you mentioned, sort of not to kind of recap what you said, but there's access has obviously increased significantly. Costs have come down. There's a over focus on sort of the paid advertising, but I mean, I'm going to throw a word that I don't think you said, but that I think maybe that you're alluding to is sort of the marketing around like a brand and your engagement or your interaction with your customer and being more attuned with how it impacts their lives and creating that like beyond just that like one-time transactional. Maybe I'm putting words in your mouth. Correct me if I'm wrong though. Like going beyond the one-time transactional approach of, you know, the advertising into more of a relationship where like they're part of the community of your business, right? So what your decisions on the marketing side actually affect their lives or the lives of the community that you're operating within.
Yeah, you know, so I'm going to seem a little bit contradictory here, okay? Self-contradictory, I should say, because, you know, as marketers, we always talk about consumer welfare, right? But the reality is businesses don't do things just because it contributes to consumer welfare. There's got to be something in it for the business.
Right.
And so here's my take. You can't build enough margin into your pricing to be able to survive on a one-time sale. You need loyalty. You need repeat business.
Lifetime value of a customer, right?
Lifetime value of a customer.
We preach that all the time. Keep talking.
Absolutely. So if you want that, you've got to have loyalty. Now, marketing makes promises to the consumer. Now, I'm not saying marketing gets to decide what promise to make. That could be R&D, that could be operations, whoever. But marketing makes a promise. Buy from me, I'll give you this, right? If the consumer doesn't get that, that's a lie.
It's a lie, or they're going to be frustrated, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And people don't form relationships with people who lie to them.
Right.
So you get one chance, one moment of contact that determines whether or not this customer will be with you in the future or whether you'll be discarded to the trash bin. And if you're discarded to the trash bin, you're not staying in business. Even if it's an infrequently purchased product, your reputation will precede you.
Right.
And you know the old saying, I can tell you a million things about myself. You may or may not believe them.
Right.
But if you hear them from somebody else, well, we all see what's happening in the States with Donald Trump, right? If you hear it from someone else, you believe it. And as a consequence, when we damage our reputation by not keeping that promise, now we're in trouble. So what does it take to keep the promise? It means marketing can't promise more than operations and R&D and procurement can deliver. So, you know, we're not just running an ad campaign here. When I think about marketing, I'm thinking about the critical decisions that govern the future of a business. It's really that simple.
Interesting. It's that whole under promise, over deliver, right? That concept is part of it, right?
Well, you always want to over deliver. The problem is if you under promise, you may never get the chance to over deliver.
Right.
And so it is finding that precarious balance, if you will, between the two.
Right. So back to the beginning, I love that you said loyalty. I mean, we talk about that with a lot of the companies that are going through our platform, and that's why I think backers and having, you know, retail investors invest, it's another way of creating a loyalty component where now they've invested in your idea. You know, they're going to be that much more loyal as customers because now you've brought them in as customers and upsold them with equity. So we talk about all these concepts here at Backers, and how that, you know, you want to create that connection with your customers so that there is multiple kind of products and opportunities of ways that you can kind of upsell them, if you will, or engage with them in a deeper level, right? Which is
absolutely right, Justin. And you know, not to blow smoke here, because I don't think you need smoke blown at you. But I think one of the distinctive things that struck me about Backers is that you're not just giving financial assistance, you're also giving them brand guidance and the like.
right.
And typically that's the harder thing for an entrepreneur to acquire.
Yeah,
Money
yeah.
is easy to find if you got a great idea.
Right. And yeah, no, definitely. We're trying to create a holistic sort of support system to bring them through at all aspects. And we do, you know, tech development as well. And so the marketing and branding, all of that to kind of get them through that to that point where I think if we can set them up as a successful business, then they're going to be able to upsell those existing customers or that community with equity. And that's going to, you know, further enhance their long-term success. So I appreciate that, you know, that you see sort of what we're doing. That's awesome. I'm going to take a step back to what you said at the beginning, though, that we're either, you know, in a death spiral or we're gonna figure it out. What do you think the deaths like? Let's kind of define that a little bit. Like where do you see if something continues? Where do you see that happening, or what is that something that you see continuing potentially?
Sure.
I put words in your mouth, death spiral. That's not what you said.
Fine.
But yeah,
It's fine. So I think there are a couple of things, and let me, as a prelude to it, let me raise three general questions that have nothing to do with business, but I think explain a lot of what's going on right now. If I was to say to you, is it a good idea to be in top physical shape? You'd probably
obviously
say
yes. Yeah.
If I asked you the question, what should I do to get into top physical shape? You could probably tell me.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of discrepancy, and some people might disagree, but yeah, there's probably a list of 3 to 5 things. You know, yeah, run,
train hard, quit
exercise,
smoking.
eat. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Eat right, quit smoking.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, if I ask the room of people, how many of you are in top physical shape? How many would raise their hand?
It depends what room you're in, but probably not many in certain rooms.
Probably not many, right?
Right.
And that doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, on one hand, we agree that this is a great objective. We all know the best practices required to make it happen.
Right.
But when push comes to shove, we choose not to do it.
Nobody's doing it. Okay. It's like, okay.
So, you know, why is that? Now, just we're going to back up a little bit before I continue with the story. We all agree we need great business, great sales, great marketing. Right? I can tell you now, I've been practicing for almost 40 years. Right. We've never known so much about how to reach the consumer and what they want. And yet we don't give it to them. Why? And I think the answer is priorities. Our priorities get mixed up. You know, I want to get in shape, but I'm too busy this week. You know, I want to get in shape, but the kids are home from school for COVID. I want to get in shape, but it's a day of the week that ends in Y. You know, we can always find some reason.
I was born on one of those days. Some people think it was yesterday, but yeah.
Yeah, me too.
It wasn't yesterday. Yeah, exactly.
Brothers from a different mother.
Yeah.
But, you know, we can always find some reason.
Right.
And I believe the same is true here. And the single biggest priority that marketers have serviced for the longest time is volume. Everybody thinks marketing is all about making a sale. And it is, but there's an important qualifier missing, and that's a profitable sale.
Right.
You know, marketing's gotten lazy. We've you know, we're happy to ride the coattails of operations and lean manufacturing. Every time they reduce costs, we reduce price, and then we get all excited because lower prices mean more sales.
Right.
The reality is, if you look at the stats, nothing drives your bottom line more than your price. Nothing. No amount of cost reduction, no amount of volume. In fact, for the average North American firm, if I cut price 1%, I need to reduce my variable cost by about 1.34%. If I just to break even, just to retain margins. And when I cut price by 1%, for the average North American firm, I need to sell 3.4% more product just to make up for the loss of margin.
I wonder the statistics the other way. What are the statistics the other way? Like if you increase price the 1%.
Well, if I increase price 1%, presumably I would lose 3.4%.
In
right?
sales.
Because it works both ways within a limited range now. If we're talking 10, 20%, it's a whole different story.
But will, if I add the 1%, will I increase my profitability by the 1.3? Will that go up the other way?
Yeah, absolutely it will.
Okay.
Absolutely it will. And so we're living in a world now where margin is becoming as important, if not more important, than volume.
Right.
And if the only thing you're relying upon is cutting price in order to build your volume, well, you know, that's a slow, painful road to hell.
Right.
Because you may be able to register some significant cost advantages when you start your cost reduction program. But eventually, this thing called diminishing returns kicks in.
Right.
And it starts to take a lot more effort to reduce prices, to reduce costs, and therefore prices by a very small amount. And so what we're starting to say now is, you know, price is more than just a transfer issue. Price is your literal declaration of your value to a customer, right? Nobody is going to pay, right? If it's free, it must be useless.
Right. Interesting. That's, I mean, it's an interesting thought process. I mean, I'm just looking at sort of what we've done with backers. Like we try to bring them into sort of a success-based fee. I look at it, a lot of people say, hey, well, you're offering it for free. I say it's more of a deferred payment. So I mean, we're expecting a lot of time, effort, energy to be put into it, right? So I guess there's a lot of perspective around there. One of the things that you mentioned there, I think is really interesting, is that you mentioned marketing has gotten lazy, right? And you talk about, we rely on operations and lean and sort of cost reduction kind of opportunities. What would be maybe like if you could break into sort of more either theoretical or tactical things that as marketers or as business owners or as businesses in general, I guess, what can we do? Because we said, exercise is important, being healthy is important, but none of us are. You said, that, sales and marketing are important. We know how to do it. Like, what are those things that maybe we're not doing? Like, I think that's probably the disconnect. Because I mean, I'm arguably we're heavily involved in marketing. I always wonder, like, what are the right steps maybe that can build that broader, I'm going to use the word again, because I think we're talking about brand or that association or that emotion that you're not lying. So we've got past the lie. Now we're into let's buy from us again. How do we evoke that emotion? That's a lot of questions in one, but I think you get where I'm coming from. Like, what is sort of that, like, what is that bridge, or what is that valley that we're kind of trying to get across?
Okay. So what I think has happened is we have forgotten what segmentation is really all about and how to do it.
Yeah.
There is nothing to my mind that marketing brings to the party that has more to offer an organization than its view of segmentation. Unfortunately, there's no single way to segment the market that works all the time. So you have to be vigilant. You have to be careful in how you do it. Now, the reason segmentation matters so much is the old classic example. Half the room wants blue, half the room wants yellow. I want to sell to the whole room because I want big volume.
Right.
So what do? I make a compromise product. I make it
green. I was going to say, what is, I'm trying to remember my grade three class, blue and yellow. What does it make, right?
That's
Green.
right.
Okay.
So now I'm losing because I'm not blue enough for the blue guys. I'm not yellow enough for the yellow guys. I'm stuck in hell. I'm stuck in between.
And no one wants to pay full price.
Right.
Because it's not what they want exactly, right?
That's right. So think of the number of entrepreneurs that come to you with a business plan. And, we all have the hockey stick graph somewhere in that plan, right? That inflection point where all of a sudden the industry takes off. And now they're forecasting that they're going to sell to 100% of the market.
Right.
It ain't going to happen. The research on this is actually quite clear. The number one brand in any category will typically have a 40 to 50 share. The number 2 and 3 brands will typically have a 15 to 25 share. And the rest gets piddled away across all of the others.
Right.
If you're in those top 3, you can make some money. If you're not in those top 3, then you better be super small and focused on some microscopic segment with extreme needs, and they'll pay a premium price for it. You've either got to make it with margin or you got to make it with volume. You can't be stuck in between trying to service 2, 3, 4 segments with the same product. It's not going to happen. And if you look at business today, we're actually seeing that, right? We have Old Navy at the low end. We got the Gap in the middle. We got Banana Republic at the high end. We got Toyota at the low end. We got Lexus at the high end. We got Honda at the low end. We got Acura at the high end. We got Holiday Inn Express at the low end. We got Hotel Intercontinental at the high end. We got Seattle's Best at the low end. We got Starbucks at the high end. These are all properties that are owned by the manager.
I was going to say, aren't they all properties owned by the same company in each instance? That's you're saying
right.
They're trying to play multiple markets. Is that a good model that they're doing or not?
Sorry?
Is it good what they're doing or not? Because they've rebranded with different names.
It's perfect what they're doing because the rebranding gives them the opportunity to forge an independent,
a different relationship.
Let me give you an example. Let's suppose you're the quintessential class nerd in high school. Okay? And every day you go to school, and unfortunately the bullies get you, they corner you, and they stick you in your locker, and they steal your lunch money. And one day you decide, I've had it, I'm tired of looking like this nerd with my pocket protector and everything else. So we go out and we buy some cool clothes, we buy some nice shades, we buy some expensive sneakers, what have you.
That's what I did. I went and got nice shoes, so I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, anyways.
Now we go back to school. What happens? They beat us up. They steal our running shoes. They steal our shades.
And now you feel even worse. You feel even worse about it.
That's right, because we're still the same person.
Right.
Now let's suppose we go to a new school, and before we go to that school on day one, we do this wardrobe transformation. Now we show up at school. What happens? Now we're the cool kid.
Right.
Until we open our mouth, and then they discover we're really a nerd. And they beat the crap
I think
out
the
of us.
world has realized everyone's a nerd at this point, right? That was
right.
the realization of 2020. But
but you get my sense.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes, when you're trying to take a brand name and extend it over several layers of quality or several layers of value, it becomes really hard to distinguish. All right, you're an X1 versus an X model X2, model X3. But you're all coming from that same place. And so the consumer expects the same level of service, right?
Right.
I go to a Seattle's Best. I don't get the theatrics, the coffee theater that I get at Starbucks, right?
Interesting.
I go to buy something at Old Navy. I don't have people waiting around in beautiful displays the way I do when I go to Banana Republic, right? Each of these has a distinct identity, a distinct promise to make to the consumer. And because those promises are different, they require a different business model, a different supporting cast, a different approach to business.
Interesting. So I like the thought process here that obviously, so the segmentation, if you're talking to a company, because this is very difficult, like this, trying to tell somebody that no, you can't be everything to everyone. You have to be something to someone, kind of thing. Is there a number? Is there because you said there's no one size fits all, right? There's no definitive answer. I guess maybe I'll ask the question in a more of an open-ended. What would be sort of maybe some ideas that a company can start to maybe segment? Like from your, I mean, is it just asking, how do you determine which direction you go in, right? Because I think a lot of companies maybe go the wrong direction even for a little too long, and maybe they should have gone a different course, right? And that's obviously being able to pivot or shift, quickly. But like, what are some things that tactically that a company can do to kind of identify where they should go?
Okay. So classically, there were always two different ways, two different approaches. One that was allegedly favored in academe, and one that was actually practiced more often than not in industry.
Okay.
The favored approach in academe was you go talk to your customers, you do a survey, et cetera. You
Right.
gather information and you sort them out into these buying cohorts. You choose one to service, and then you design your product around them. Nice.
So sort of like survey, nice in theory, right?
Yeah, nice in theory, but I come from a family business background, and I got to tell you, my dad, my uncles, my aunts, they knew what they were going to make. It wasn't going to change. The question there was, let's find the customer who wants it.
Right.
That's a different approach, right?
Right.
One starts here, the other starts here, but eventually, as long as they align up, as long as you're producing something the customer wants, you're going to win. Whether it starts with your product and finding a customer, or you start asking the customer and then define your product, doesn't matter. Either way works. The key, however, is to frame the business around the right value proposition, the right way of creating value. And I'll give you a simple example. I use this in class all the time. Viagra, right? Product we buy, we know of for treatment of erectile dysfunction.
Right.
But the reality is Viagra wasn't created as a treatment for erectile dysfunction. Viagra was actually created as a heart product, a heart medication. This product would literally keep you alive. It was only when they were doing the clinical trials on the heart treatment that they discovered it had this extra effect.
The side effect. There you go. Yeah, your heart is pumping too hard, maybe, right?
That's right. So now Pfizer wants to roll it out, and of course they want to roll it out in both indications, and the people in government won't let them because they're worried about consumer confusion. All these men trying to have with bad hearts trying to have sex and dying, I guess. So they say no, you can only do one indication at a time. And so they do the business analysis, and what they discover is this: they roll Viagra out as a heart medication. They enter the single largest category of pharmaceutical sales in the world. Nothing sells in greater quantities than heart medications, right? Okay. And the expectation is that as all these post-war baby boomers age, chronic heart conditions are going to go through the roof, and there'll be unprecedented demand for Viagra. However, it is such a huge market, there's lots of competition. Right. Not just from other pharmaceuticals, you got naturopaths, you got crystals, you got all manner of competition in there. Right. And so they discover that the most they can charge for a tablet of Viagra as a heart medication is $3 a pill.
So it's the whole margin.
They take that same product, sell it for erectile dysfunction, it's $30 a pill. Right. A 10-fold increase in price with no increase in costs. Right. Why? Because you've directed it towards something that men value more, right?
With less competition, I guess. When they came out, they might have been the only one on the market. I mean, there's others now, but yeah.
Absolutely right. There was no comparative technology for treating erectile dysfunction, right? And so you're sitting there and you're saying, well, geez, if I can make that kind of margin by directing my product into its most valuable use, that's how I need to think about pricing. I don't need to think about pricing as I'm going to take 10% off my price or my commission rate, as the case may be.
They're able to differentiate, against the generic kind of brand, right? Or the computer Absolutely. For everyone, right? So this is a computer for, designers or whatever, kind of the Apple, that, and then versus, maybe the Dell over here, that's, your generic computer.
Absolutely. You can never beat a specialist if you're a generalist. It's that simple. The specialist has nothing on their mind except making their customer happy. The generalist is constantly trying to trade off between these two segments to come up with the best green product they can when they're up against somebody who's making the truest blue or the truest yellow color. It's not going to happen.
Interesting.
And that's why I say when we make volume our priority, we tend to want to chase multiple segments with a single product. And what happens is we build in features that are specific and appeal to each of these segments. But now we got a product with 3 special features to service 3 different segments. And 2 of the segments don't care about 2 of the 3 things.
Right. We use an example, and I don't know if it's in one of the videos, but talking about the Palm Pilot, right? Sort of, they went out and there was all these features, or I think Henry Ford says it best, right? Like if I asked everyone, what they wanted, they'd want faster horses or more horses, I guess, right? Not a car, right? I think I usually bastardize my quotes, but and then the Palm Pilot, obviously, they went out if they didn't realize you want, voice and kind of apps, combined in one versus, the Palm Pilot was arguably just, calendar and apps, and you still had to have a phone, right? So.
Well, absolutely. But you see, this is where it starts to get really interesting, because there's another famous Henry Ford quote, and that was, "You can have it in any color you want as long as it's black."
Right. Yeah,
right?
I think I've seen that one as well. Yeah.
And the reason that was so brilliant is that Ford realized that while he may have to produce a different type of car for different segments, there were some things that the consumer didn't care about.
Right.
Some places where he could economize and get some scale economies. And one was paint them all black because nobody cares. Right. And so when you have that capability, now you have a platform to introduce more brands. So you think about Post-it notes, right? What is a Post-it note? It's a glue that won't stick adhered to something.
Right.
It could be anything. It could be a business card. It could be a big flip chart. It could be anything at all. And we can print it. We can put it on plastic or paper, what have you. Now, 3M, unlike most sectors, owns both the high end of the market with its Post-it notes branded thing. And, you probably got them, for your business with your logo imprinted on them or some message like while you were out or what have you. But then you got this generic buff version Post-it note, the sort of thing you might find in a dollar store.
Right.
I wonder, well, how does 3M own both of those? I get how they own the high end, but how do they own the low end? Well, simple. They say glue that won't stick is glue that won't stick. Doesn't matter whether I put it on the high end product or the low end product. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to produce glue that won't stick in sufficient volume to service both markets. And then what I'll do is I'll take that intermediate product, that low end product, and I'll gussy it up. I'll put some printing on it. I'll cut it a certain way.
So it's designed like animals, right? I've seen, different designs, different colors. Yeah.
So now I'm winning the high end and the low end, and I win the high end the more I specialize, because ultimately, if you think about a pink elephant Post-it note, right? How big a market is there for a pink elephant Post-it note? It's not very big.
Right. But there's somebody out there that's going to pay $5 for it, right? Or whatever versus the $1 or whatever that number
gets
is.
To that segment first,
right,
will own it forever, because the market's not big enough to justify a second, third, fourth competitor.
Right. It's interesting. I heard a stat. If you can win over a client, customer, user for 90 days straight, you have them for life. Is there any credence to that type of thought process, or?
Yeah, as long as you continue to deliver.
Right.
I mean, nothing is ever on
nothing's indefinite, right? Yeah. Nothing lasts forever.
If you think about it, the psychologists tell us that it takes between 30 and 90 days to form a habit.
Right.
So, my goal is always to take a state of liking my product, and I want to make that a permanent trait.
Right.
It's right. We're teaching somebody to trust us.
Right.
And typically it takes about 3 exposures before somebody really internalizes it. Now, if it's my kids being told to clean up their room, it takes a lot more than 3 exposures, but that's beside the point.
300, 3,000. Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
And then we have arguments about what clean really looks like, but that's another story too.
There you go. So that's it. Let me ask. Yeah, it was a dumb question. I was gonna say, is there a reason why like cases of pop are like 24 or 30? Because you're gonna drink one a day, but there's probably other numerical reasons why
Actually,
they come
there
cases
are good
of 12
reasons
and
why.
24. But yeah,
It has to do with display cases. It has to do with supply chain, storage on trucks.
right.
There's a famous story that Walmart, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, in an effort to really hurt their competition. Walmart is, of course, the largest account for most suppliers.
Right.
Walmart said, we're going to a different size of shipping pallet. So those shipping pallets you're using for everybody else, we won't accept products sold on those pallets. And
really?
so they literally forced these suppliers to either carry two sets of pallets or inform the other sellers that they had to change to Walmart size pallets.
So what? Oh, I was going to say. So what ended up happening is they then forced the suppliers to force the other side of the market to change.
Correct.
Wow.
And you know what? We're seeing that now with post-COVID, right? Loblaws, Sobeys, Walmart, they've all sent letters to their suppliers saying, by the way, when the supply chain shortages are done and you're replenishing shelves, just remember who your biggest customer is. We want replenishment first.
So how does that work in the market? Like, I mean, who in your opinion takes precedence? Walmart? I mean, in a Ontario setting, I would argue Loblaws, Superstore, Shoppers, would probably, in a grocery setting at least, take precedent over Walmart, would it not? But obviously on a broader scale, Canada, North America, Walmart would probably take precedence. So how does a company determine that? Like, that's kind of bold of both of them to kind of go at it that hard.
Oh, it's yeah. Well, first of all, it's not just them. It's every large retailer is trying to secure their place in the queue for product that is in short supply. And the argument is simple. We give you the most business, and so we should count for the most. That's the argument. But this really is part of a whole broader trend of conflict going on between retailers and vendors.
Right.
It's for control of the channel. You see, in the old days, we'll get to a little bit of history here. If you think about soap operas, soap operas were called soap operas because the sponsor was Procter & Gamble and other soap companies, right?
That's interesting. You learn something new every day. I did not know why, but that's because, okay.
And so the idea was they're going to advertise to the consumer direct. The consumer is going to go into the store and say, give me some Tide.
Right. They want to
And if the retailer says, I don't have Tide, the consumer is going to go somewhere else. And if that happens often enough, now the retailer goes to P&G and says, please, sell me some Tide.
Send me Tide, yeah.
And P&G would say, okay, but here are the terms of that trade.
Right.
In this world, though, things have changed. Because of the ineffectiveness of a lot of advertising, we now had consumers walking into stores, not in every product category, but in many. Instead of saying, give me some Tide, they're walking into the store saying, I'm looking for a really good laundry detergent. What have you got?
Okay, so sort of the power shifted to the consumer in that sense?
Right. Well, shifted to the retailer.
The retailer, right.
Because now the retailer probably also has a private label.
Oh, right. And they can determine what they sell at what margin. Right.
That's right. And how prominently they feature it. And
right.
So, the whole customer journey stuff. And so now what happens is if that happens often enough, now P&G has to go to the retailer, please carry my product. And the retailer says, all right, you want me to do it? Here's the deal. $200,000 slotting allowance. You got to advertise in 6 Wednesday supplements. Here's the timing of those supplements. And by the way, here's how big a discount you have to give in each of those Wednesday add-ins.
Right.
I can say no, but if Loblaws is asking, Loblaws with its 28 different badges, different brands.
Is that how many they have?
Yeah.
Different banners? Really? Wow.
28. Well, because they acquire small regional chains and they
Okay.
let them stay that way.
Right.
They represent collectively, depending on who you read, 55 to 65% of all commodity sales in grocery.
Right.
So if I say no to Loblaws, I'm at a 65% of the market.
Right. Right. So you're held capped or hostage essentially to what their demands.
Yeah. So imagine if I'm a small business now, they could consume my entire marketing budget, make me completely dependent on them. And when that hits, of course, and we all know, 80% of sales come from 20% of customers. Now we're hostage. We don't have a choice. When they bark, we will come.
I've heard that story for Walmart. I mean, it's interesting. I would assume Loblaws right up the same alley, but Walmart, almost puts suppliers out of business, because they're trying to buy at below, arguably below cost, like a zero margin or net negative, just to be on a Walmart shelf. Has that changed a little bit? Because I mean, that business model, even if you're the retailer, it can't last, right? You can't squeeze everyone all the time and expect there to be anyone left, right? Unless that's the spiral that you were referring to that we're going down earlier. But
well, you can't expect it to last forever,
right?
But it does create the race to the bottom,
right?
Because as I take cost out of the retailer's portfolio and I pass it down the line to the vendor,
right?
Now the vendor's got to do something to make up for that loss of profitability.
Right.
So what are they going to do? They can't sell more, so they got to make it for less.
Right.
And now you're using cheaper ingredients. Maybe you're skipping steps. Maybe you're not giving
labor,
after-sale service, and so
offshoring, like outsourcing, that sort of stuff as well, right?
Absolutely.
Labor standpoint.
And so eventually, the business becomes a commodity because everybody's making the lowest price product they can, and there's no room left for differentiation or special features.
Interesting. Well, Ken, I really appreciate you joining me here today. So just to sum it all up, where are we going? The market going? Are we leaning towards the doomsday, or do you think we have a good shot at getting into the other side as you started at the beginning?
Right now, I really think it's too close to call.
Really? Okay.
And it's not because we don't know what to do. It's because people still persist in pursuing the big market, the big volume.
Right.
And again, if that's what you're trying to do, it makes sense to spend a bundle of money on the biggest ad campaign you can, but don't expect it to work because we know diversity surrounds us.
Right. Interesting. And so, yeah, you talked about segmentation. So just segmentation and differentiation. You want to add a third one there so we can have our top three?
Revenge of the nerds. It's analytics time, folks. As soon as you've got something ready to go, don't wait till it's a grand slam home run. Bunt singles are fine. The home runs will come. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's like kind of that whole get started, get it to market. I've heard people say similar to what you say, like perfection is I forget of all ingenuity or something. I don't know. I'm terrible with quotes. I just hope people hear me botch them and go try and look them up and see what the actual quote might be, the real quote, right? But you get it, right? It's that, trying, I've heard people where they're, they spend 6 months on a launch so that they have the perfect product. And in those 6 months, 3 other companies come to market and they, basically wasted all their time kind of thing, right?
All the time. All the time.
Interesting. Perfect. Well, Dr. Ken Wong, professor at the Smith, the Smith School of Business at Queen's. You're in Kingston, Ontario. Thank you very much for joining me. We'd love to have you back. Where can people find you? I guess on LinkedIn. Do you have any talks coming up, or?
They can get me on LinkedIn. They can certainly find webinars that I've done on the Smith Connect or Queen's website.
Okay.
We're not doing a lot of talks these days because
no. Okay. But, is that there's no fundraising?
Well, there may be fundraising, but those aren't paid for gigs, so they don't count.
Right. There you go. Well, I really appreciate you coming on here. I'd love to maybe have you back in a few months. We can talk about analytics and kind of go down that road as well. that'd be interesting to
Anytime.
talk
In
about.
fact, I'd love to come on sometime with my good friends, Ron Tite and Mitch Joel, who I know you've had on in the past.
Yeah, definitely. We could do a little round table. That's actually, you know what? I've been talking about doing a kind of like a round table, or there's a couple, like a think tank type of concept, where we get maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe as many as 9 people, from sort of various walks of life on. So yeah, I'll keep you in mind. I think we were actually looking at doing that. So would you be interested in joining us for a little round table? Yeah,
absolutely. Nobody has all the answers, but everybody has part of it.
Yeah,
and, You
exactly.
just got to listen to enough people to figure out the parts that work for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I really appreciate it. I'll connect with you on that. We'll get that sorted. Maybe sometime in November we can try and get that through the gate.
Anytime. You know where I live.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Enjoy. Hey there. Welcome to One Take, powered by Backers.
No judging.
Yeah.
No judging.
And the millennials are really changing that.
Is charm. No.
All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.